Welcome to the Mount Pleasant Magazine podcast, featuring discussions and interviews about the people, places, and events that make Mount Pleasant such a special place.
The Mount Pleasant Magazine podcast is sponsored by Southern Belle Living. The journey to your Charleston area home begins here. Hi, this is Roger Gaither, your host for the Mount Pleasant Magazine podcast. Today, Bill Macchio, publisher of Mount Pleasant Magazine, chats with Tressy Magwood Mellichamp, author and historian of East Cooper, a Maritime Heritage, and daughter of the late Captain Wayne Magwood. Now, here are Bill and Tressy.
I'm so honored to have this episode of Mount Pleasant Magazine podcast, and Tressy is with us. Tressy, thanks for joining us. We really appreciate your time with us.
So excited to be here and to be a part of this.
Tell us the lineage of your family when it comes to fishing, please.
I come from a very rich maritime history. My family has been here in this community since the 1700s, but we've been in the actual shrimping industry for the last 100 years. My family was one of the first families to own and invent in our area, was invented in Florida, the trawler, and to go out and test our waters for shrimp. And we got the fever, and we've been a part of it ever since. We still are. I've got a cousin who is still carrying on our heritage.
Tressy, you say you're part of it. You're a deep, deep part of it. Our kids don't do what we do, what we say. They do what we do. And you so much represent what your daddy was all about, and your grandfather and your great-grandfather. So tell us about, if you don't mind, what it was like growing up with your dad and the fishing around you.
Our town was a lot smaller then.
Yeah.
And it was a lot quieter. But growing up, there was a huge, the fishing industry was a huge focal point, was part of our economy here in Mount Pleasant. There wasn't quite as much tourism back in the day, and people went out and made an honest living. And a lot of our seafood products, people don't realize, went as far away as New York, Fulton Fish Market. Our stuff was shipped out of here to Texas, to all these processing plants down and on the Gulf Coast. And it was a huge vital role in the economy of our community. And it's not so much anymore because there's not as many boats out there fishing. And, we've seen a lot of decline in different things, but we're still hanging on, and we're still trying to do it. And our seafood products are now just served in the finest restaurants downtown.
Tell everybody about the Maritime. Is it a museum? Is that what you'd like to do?
My dream for our community. I did a little history book because I really felt like this community. I have 3 children, and I wanted my 3 children, along with every other child in this town, to realize that we had such a rich history here, and it hadn't been written down yet. So
tell us the name of your book, Tressy, so if people want to look for it, they can, please.
Okay, it's called. I got it right here. It's called.
There you go.
A Maritime Heritage, and it just talks about the fishing industry and our maritime heritage here east of the Cooper, separate from Charleston, because Charleston has its own rich history, but Mount Pleasant itself and Shem Creek has its own community of heritage.
You're listening to the Mount Pleasant Magazine podcast, sponsored by Southern Belle Living. The journey to your Charleston area home begins here.
We have an announcement right here on Mount Pleasant Magazine's podcast. And what is that announcement? Tell us what we're doing.
I am working in conjunction with the town of Mount Pleasant to raise money for the Wayne Magwood Fisherman's Memorial. And we are hoping to raise enough funds to work with this beautiful artist I've met. I have to plug her name. Her name is Susie Chisholm.
I want you to plug her. Tell us why. Yes. Tell us a little more detail what it is, why you inspired her to be part of this.
Well, she's very well known up and down the East Coast and in different states. She does human sculpture, and she does beautiful work. She teaches at the college down in Savannah. And I was introduced to her by a friend of mine who is with Somerville, the town of Somerville. And she's a wonderful lady. She's met with me, and we have come up with a pose where Dad will be leaning on the rail of Shem Creek. So this is a beautiful welcoming pose that you'll want to come up and stand with him.
Isn't that cool to say your dad's going to be leaning on? Now, isn't that walkway called the Magwood Walkway? What is that walkway called?
Yes, they named it in honor of my dad and my grandfather, actually. It's called the Magwood Boardwalk. and it's the wooden pedestrian bridge that is connected to Shem Creek. So he'll be on the Magwood Boardwalk, leaning on the rail, and he'll be holding up a huge tassel of shrimp. And the thought behind this is to keep that dialogue of community and fishing alive. And so behind him will be all the boats at Shem Creek and all the restaurants, of course. But we want to connect the past with the future to keep that dialogue going. And so what we're going to do is connect a QR code that's going to take you to a website where you can look at all the boats behind you, find out all the names and all the captains, find out where to find their catches, where you can go buy those, and what restaurants are serving their shrimp. So let's say you're visiting Mount Pleasant, you want to support the fishing community. You can just bring up your phone after you take your picture with my dad.
Of course.
And, and then you can find out where you can just go eat local seafood. And who's
it's such a practical way and fun way of doing commerce, you know. But you know, one of the things that I'd like to embark on a little bit here, Tressy, is that everybody looks at Shem Creek as a tourist thing right now, but it's so much more to this community. I mean, it was and still is in a lot of ways the heartbeat of Mount Pleasant for sure.
It is definitely the heartbeat. I like to think of it as the artery because it's a vein that, you know, of salt water that runs right through the middle of the creek. And that salt water runs through all the veins in my family and all the veins of the fishermen and the fishermen that are going to be represented in this. And this memorial is not going to be just about my dad, which he would not want it just to be about himself. He would want us to use this as a tool to promote seafood, to promote our history, promote our heritage. There's so many ways you can go with this. We can promote the history of Shem Creek. We can keep that alive.
Y'all started the Blessing of the Fleet. Tell us how that evolved, if you don't mind, and how that took place as best as you know.
My grandmother, my stepmother, Ann Magwood, and my dad, Wayne Magwood. My grandmother was Alva Magwood. So, you know, the men folk in our family all went out and trawled and went out and caught that seafood and brought it back. The women were in charge of marketing and selling and promoting what their husbands did. And so in the 80s, there was a period of time where fishing wasn't so popular when Jaws came out. And so a way to give back to the community, my family decided, was to host a festival. And so we started it downtown at the Port Authority in downtown. And we brought it over to Mount Pleasant a few years later. And we host it every year right now. It's at Mount Pleasant Waterfront Park. And so my dad had 4 daughters. And I want to go back to what you were talking about with mentoring and how children learn what they see.
Yes, please do.
My dad was a huge component of that. And he mentored so many young children in our industry, in his industry, shrimping. And that to him was how he kept his heritage alive. I can't even tell you how many young men he's brought up in the fishing industry. And they're still out there fishing and making a living today. The Tarvin's son, Vasa, is one of one of his legacies. He brought Vasa on the boat, I think, whenever he was like 13 years old, and mentored him. And Douglas Lockwood, my cousin Rocky Magwood, he mentored him up.
We have an interview in the current issue, the July-August edition, and we got a picture of your daddy in the magazine.
Yes, you do. Thank you so much for putting that in there for Father's Day. That was such a...
No. This is in the July-August edition.
Oh, okay. Oh, it's coming out. I haven't seen it yet. Yay! Yeah. So, and for those out there that don't know how to get it, if you go to readmpm.com, the digital version is online. Yep. Awesome. But so anyway, you know, in the Blessing this year, we had, I would say 3 of our vessels were vessels captained by captains that my dad mentored.
That's awesome.
And, that's a huge testament in an industry that is not exactly excelling right now. So, you know, he's left quite a legacy here in Mount Pleasant, and we are so proud to be a part of that legacy. And as his daughter, he had 4 girls, and I think God did that for a reason, because he had all these children to mentor. As part of his legacy, we're just glad to be able to help carry on the dialogue, help be a part of the future of the maritime industry, and promote our local seafood and our fishermen.
Nicole said that the event this year was just fantastic.
It was so heartwarming. It really was. It was, I MC the blessing every year, which I'm so honored to do because, this community of fishermen they're all like my uncles and my family. I've known them since before I was born. And I just love them so much. And, they are my heroes. They go out every day. They put their lives at risk. They go, far away from their families. I know exactly what they do because my dad did it and I lived it as a child.
Everyone's talking about real estate. The conversation continues with Voice for Real Estate podcast. Listen and learn from the experts who call the Carolinas home. Podcast advertising gives your business a voice of authority. Be heard. Advertise on this podcast. Visit voiceforrealestate.com.
Did your daddy take you out on the boat often?
Always. They would work back in the days where they were worked really long hours, and their whole, financials depended on them working. So they would work. Our season in South Carolina for shrimp usually runs from April till around December. They've extended it a lot in the recent years because the number of boats are so small. But when I was a child, it would just go till around Christmas. And then in wintertime, they would go to Florida and catch shrimp because the water's warmer down there. They have seasons that are open more year round than we are here in South Carolina. So they would winter in Florida. So yes, we spent a lot of time on the boat visiting with my dad, and Dad would take us to eat on dredges. We ate on tanker ships. He knew everybody, and we had just a charmed childhood growing up here in our community. And
what I see by your conversations is that you definitely he had a lot of passion for what he did, and it flowed over into not only younger men so he could mentor, but his children.
Oh, yes.
And I definitely see that. Let's go back because I'm excited about the memorial. Let's go back to the memorial. Do you have a GoFundMe?
Yes, it's through the town of Mount Pleasant and it is tax deductible. So yes, we do. We have a memorial set up. It's on the town of Mount Pleasant's webpage. If you just go to the town of Mount Pleasant and you Google Wayne Magwood, it should pop up. I also have it on my personal Facebook page. And I wanted to share this t-shirt that we have not started promoting yet, but we're going to. This picture was taken with a very cool camera by a personal friend of my dad's, and he went around and did a couple of shots of different captains on the creek, and his name is Dan Zexler, and he was sweet enough to let us borrow this photo or have the rights to this photo to sell. We're going to start selling these t-shirts to promote and market for the Fisherman's Memorial. And we're going to be bringing that out soon. And we're going to promote it on our Team Magwood Facebook page. We just haven't figured out all the details of financing yet, how we're going to collect money, but we're going to get there. And
when you get it together, please forward me any links and stuff because Mount Pleasant Magazine will be 110% behind us.
Awesome. Well, we're really excited about it. And we're going to meet that goal. It might not be this year, but it's going to be soon. And he's going to be right there on top of the Shem Creek Bridge, and he's going to be greeting and welcoming people to the creek. And he's going to be linking the past with the future, and it's going to be incredible. It's going to be.
I like that, linking the past with the future. I just love our creek. I do. I want people by listening to this understand the depth of it. And I'm not talking about the depth of the water, but the depth of what it means to this community. I mean, it's just like, there's so much, there was so much commerce that went on there. Now the commerce is different now, right?
It is different now. There's not as many boats, so that the amount of seafood coming out of the creek is not as plentiful, and the shrimp and the fish are not going out to as many markets as it used to be. It's staying more community, more local. But
Tressy, the commerce is that plus all the restaurants on there.
Yes, the tourists and that's part of the commerce is exactly what we want to promote as well with this statue. We want people to know where they can go and buy a fresh triggerfish or grouper or who's got fresh local fried shrimp, boiled shrimp, who's making fried.
Do most of the restaurants along Shem Creek subscribe to getting local seafood?
They try, but the fishermen's plight has always been this. They have so restaurants have a menu and they want to keep that menu pretty sustainable throughout the year. Well, shrimp come in seasons. We have a large white roe shrimp that comes at the very beginning of our season in spring. Then we switch to a small brown shrimp that goes through the summer. And then that brown shrimp kind of gets a little bit bigger, like a medium-sized, nice-sized shrimp. And then we have a larger white shrimp that have spawned. Those show up in the fall. So the menus, I try to educate restaurateurs. It's just like, your peaches come in the summertime, your strawberries come in the spring. You've got to adjust your menu to accommodate the crop that is coming in. And so it's really hard for them. They start out gangbusters with that big, large shrimp in the spring to hang on to that local product and bring it all the way through to the end because they want to keep that one dish on their menu. But you've really got to change it up. You got to use that little fork shrimp, that little brownie in between, and make some Creole, some different things, Perlos.
Thank you so much for joining us. It really meant a lot. I'm so
excited to be here.
When you think of the Magwood family and you think of the deep roots in Mount Pleasant, if you guys are having a family reunion, okay, of past and current, okay, what would that message be to the community you and I serve, where we live right now?
I think our family just is really honored to be a part of the fabric and the history of Mount Pleasant. We're really honored to have been able to bring up 4 generations, and we have a 5th generation coming along right now. He's 2 years old, and in the maritime industry, and to still be here fishing, because that is not an easy feat right now. I mean, you're going to have Lockwood on next week, who's lost his vessel. So I think what we want people to know is that, they're going out every day with joy and hope in their heart. They're going out there to try to find that fresh product, and they're so proud to bring that product back to the community. And we want the community to love it. We want them to enjoy it, and we want to take this into the future. We don't want this legacy of shrimping and fishing to die out. We want to see it sustainable. We want to see it marketable. We want to see it here for the next generation.
Well, hopefully messages like we're giving will help. But I'm looking forward to hanging out with your old man on the boardwalk there and having a brewski with him, So
it's going to be awesome. I'm so excited.
Thanks very much, Tressy, for being here at Mount Pleasant Magazine Podcast. I appreciate it very much.
Thank you so much. Bill, can I just say one thing? We're going to use my dad's platform with Team Magwood on Facebook. So we're going to start using that platform for education, to promote all of our local boys that my dad has mentored, all the fishermen, so that they can start advertising their fresh catches on that platform and use it for themselves, because my dad had so many followers. And we're also going to be posting that T-shirt link on that as soon as we get it up and running.
Awesome. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
You've been listening to the Mount Pleasant Magazine Podcast, sponsored by Southern Belle Living.
Thanks for spending your time with the Mount Pleasant Magazine Podcast. Your community, your podcast. Listen to past and future episodes at mountpleasantpodcast.com.